Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope that you are doing well and studying effectively. So today we are going to start a new topic, that is a composition, and we will study deeply about the compositions and all the subtopics related to it. In the previous lecture, we were studying about the static data members and static member functions, friend classes, friend functions, and things like that. So I hope that up till now you have a strong hold that how to control a single class, how to uh, analyze, design, develop a single class, and then fulfill all the requirements which are given in the problem into a class and translate into a running program through object-oriented programming. So now what we will do that we will combine existing classes to build more classes, to build new classes. So it is the basic concept of reusability, and the reusability can be achieved through functions in the procedural paradigm, in the action-oriented programming, and now in object-oriented programming. The reusability can be achieved through composition and inheritance. So inheritance we will study in the future lectures, but now we will cover the composition. So what is a composition? A composition is a hazard relationship, and it is a whole part relationship in which one class will be a whole which will be constructed from the parts. And by parts I mean the existing classes through which you will combine them and make a new class. So composition is generally used when you want the features of an existing class inside your new class, but not its interface necessarily. So that is, you embed an object as private data members of another class. So that is the same thing as I have told you. And particularly in today's lecture, what we will do, we will understand by implementing some examples. The first example is related with the employee class, and we will compose the employee class with date, name, and address class. So you have already studied the employee class, in which date and name were composed into it. But now we will add another field, that is address, and that address is basically the object of an address class, which is a separate class. So we will compose it into the employee class. And then we will study another example, that is a point circle composition, in which a circle will consist of 2 points. The first point will be in the center of the circle, and the second point will be on the boundary of a circle. And we will see some new features like utility functions and other things like that in this example. So let's start. So here is our first example, and in this example you can see that we are constructing three classes. Now this is employee, date, and name hierarchy. Not hierarchy, actually a composition. So let me show you one thing here. That this is our first class. This is name class, consisting of the member's first name, middle name, and last name. And we have a default argument constructor, we have a copy constructor, destructor, and then comes the print function, then comes the set name function. And these are the definitions of these functions. And then comes the date class, and date class consists of day, month, and year. And remaining things are same. That is a default argument constructor, copy constructor, destructor, print date function, and set date function, a setter. I'm not given any individual setters and getters and collective getter inside it. So you can add that inside it. And these are the definitions, and then comes the employee class. Now in this employee class, you can clearly see that the private data members of this employee class is are three objects of existing classes. So first object is name, which is of name class, date of birth, which is of date class, date of hiring, which is of date class. So now what will happen, these three objects will be constructed, and on that three objects, one wrapper will be made to complete the object of the employee. And this is the default argument constructor. This is the destructor, parent function, and then comes, these are all the definitions of employee class. And now here we have created an employee class E1, and we have initialized it with 9 data members. Okay, so Muhammad Imtisalur Rahman, this is first name, middle name, last name. 546 is, this is the day, month, and year of the date of birth, and this is 15/8/2010. This is the date of hiring of that employee. So you can see that the constructor has been called with these values, and appropriate constructors of the part classes will be called inside the constructor of the whole class. And then there is another thing you are seeing here, that we have constructed three separate objects in the main. These objects are not part of any other class, because once the class is created, the individual object of that class can be made. So now I will show you here what I'm talking about. That the first view, this, if you can see this, this first view is that the first object was created as name, second object created as date of birth, third object created as date of hiring, and these have three fields, 1, 2, 3. I'm writing the short form, first name, middle name, and last name. And in date of birth we have three fields, day, month, and year. And then again in date of hiring we have three fields, day, month, and year. And after this, after these values are set inside these particular fields, like Muhammad Imtisalur Rahman, 5, let me write it here, 5/4/1986, and then date of hiring is 15/8/2010, and here it was stored as Muhammad Imtisal Rahman. Okay, I'm writing the short form. And after that, this whole thing will be treated as a single object of employee class E1, like here, right? Okay. But in this scenario, what we are doing in this particular scenario, we are creating three separate objects. Now, these are the objects of classes, but these are the part of E1. Now we can create name and date of birth, date of hiring, separate objects like this. This is a separate object, a separate object, and a separate object. Three fields here, three fields here, and three fields here. So first name, middle name, last name, day, month, year, day, month, year. And its name is N, its name is DOB, and its name is DOH. So you can see clearly here that these are the objects created here. And now these are initialized with Muhammad Talha Safdar 30/12/1990, 5/4/2010. So let me write it here. write it here. Talha Sattar, 30/12, 1990, and then 5/4, 2010. Now what is happening here that I have created another object E2. Now E2, in E2 I have passed these three independent objects reference like N, DOB and DOH. So what happens here is that here three objects are created. Once again, name, date of birth, and date of hiring. And these values are copied here. These values of individual objects are copied here. Mind it, this is also in the main, this is also in the main, this is also in the main. These are all created in the main function. So these values will be copied here, and then this whole thing will become the object of employee class E2. So this can also be done. So all these values will be copied here, these values will be copied here, and these values will be copied here. And for this we have a particular constructor, and if you can see on the screen that in this case not the default argument constructor will be called with the 9 fields, but the constructor which we have made with 3 object references. So let me show you here, and here it is. So here you are receiving a name class reference ename, then date class reference edob, and then date class reference edoh. So what will happen, this reference ename, this n, its alias will become ename, this dob, its alias will become edob, and its doh, its alias will become edoh. And then when you access in this constructor these values, that what you are doing, you are uh, calling the constructor and passing these references to individual class like name, date of date, and then date. Here the name constructor will be called, and in these two cases the date constructor will be called first with the date of birth information and then with the date of hiring information, and that will be set in there. So I hope that you got this idea. Now what we are doing, we have to add a new field here, a new field which will be added here, uh, will be of address information, will contain the address information. So let me show you what I want to do. So name, date of birth, and then there will be another object, and then I want to create an object of employee class. So this will be a name, date of birth, date of hiring, and this will be the address. It has 3 fields. It has date has also 3 fields, but now in the case of address we have 4 fields. So the first field will be house number, then the street, then the city, and then the country. So now we have to do this thing. So for implementing this thing, what we will do is we create a new class. So here we create a new class, and let me write it that start of declaration of address class. So class address, okay, so public functions, and then comes the private members. What are the private members? So the first private member is string type house number, or you can write H number like this, H number. Then comes the street, then comes the city, and then finally there will be a country. So why I have declared all these as string? Because it will contain alphabets, string of alphabets. This is why I've chosen the string data type. And now I will make some functions here. The first function will be constructor. Okay, and this is the default argument constructor, and default values will be. So what I will write is hn assigns to an empty string. If you pass nothing, then definitely it will be empty. Then comes string street, and street is also an empty string. Then comes the city, and okay, let me change it to uh, CTY. Okay, so this is only because I want to differentiate between the class member, data member, and the argument and the parameter of this default argument constructor. Otherwise, you have to use this pointer. Okay, then comes the country, and country again empty string. So this is your default argument constructor. And what if I want to take the objects? So then I will declare. Okay, there is no need for that. Actually, it consists of all the strings. So now what we'll do, also give the destructor just for the clarity. So here's the destructor. Then comes the print function and void print address. Okay, and it will print all the information in the address object. Then comes the setter and void set address, and it will have all the values like this. So HN for house number, ST for street, CTY for city, and then COUN for country. Right? Okay. So what next is now we have to declare this, define this. So what I will do is just copy all these declarations, and then let me write end of declarations of address class. Then comes the definitions, and definitions, here goes the definitions. So I have to add the scope resolution operator here. First, I will remove these semicolons because there are no semicolons at the end of the definitions. Then the body of these functions, like this. And the scope resolution operator, of course. Without that, the scope error will be shown. Press. I have to write this in front of all the names. Okay, so now this framework is ready. Now I will fill in what I have to do with it. So in this, I will call the set address function and will pass these fields hn, um, st, cty, and coun. I don't have to rewrite all the code which I've already written in the set address, so I'm just calling the set address function here. In destructor, at the moment we don't want to do any particular thing, so then comes the print address. So in print address we will print all the information. So cout, first field is house number, h number. So house number is h number. Okay, then comes street. Street. So it is. Then comes city. City name. Then comes country name. And finally, we are done with the print function. So here it goes. And then in the setter, definitely what you will do in the house number, you will assign the parameter received in the parameter value hn, which you've received in this function. And then in the street, you will assign st. In city, you will assign cty because the value is received in it. And then in the country, you will assign the coun. So now we have completed all the address class. Now what important is that uh, now I want to add this in the inside the employee class. So Now what I will do is I will go in the private part and address private section of the employee class, and then create an object there named as address type का एक object address. Then I have to inculcate this object into the member functions of the employee. So now I have to change it a bit. So how I will change it? So let me save it in a new file with address. So in default argument constructor, I will add 4 fields, and those 4 fields I will copy from here, like this, and it's finally done. And then in the member initializer list part, what I have to do is now I have to write the name of this object. Therefore, the constructor of this object is being called here. So address. So here I will write the name of the object, and I will pass these fields: hn, then st, then cty, and then coun. And the constructor of address will receive these values and construct the object of address, and then return the call here in the member initializer list of the employee class. So after doing this, what we have to do is, okay, there's one more requirement, and that is I have to create a salary field as well. So salary field is not an individual object. It is not an individual class. It is just a single field, and it will reside inside the employee class as a built-in data type, that is double and salary. Okay, so of course, then I have to add one more field here, cell, and the initial value of cell is 0.0 if nothing is given. And there is no need to give the salary, although I can write it here, but you can also initialize that in the body of the constructor. So for the sake of clarity, let me show you here that I will initialize the salary with the value cell. Right? You can do exactly the same thing in the body, uh, like like you can do this salary assigns to cell, right? But I'm not doing that. I'm using member initializer list because I've told you in the past lectures that the non-constant data members of the class can be initialized in the member initializer list of the constructor or inside the body of the constructor. Both ways are fine. The constant data members must always be initialized inside the member initializer list. So now I've completed it, and then for the second type of constructor, I have to give the reference of. Now you can declare these references as constant. It will be better. Therefore, you cannot change the original object, but it is okay. So I'm doing is address type, reference, and the e-address. And then I have to call address object and pass e-address here. E-address. And yes, don't forget to add the salary. So salary type is double and double sal. Forgot to write string. Yes, so I'm just writing it. And finally, double type cell. I think I forgot it here as well. And in the declarations, okay, now it's fine. So the second constructor is ready. Now what we have to do is just salary and initialize it with cell like this. Okay. So now it is ready. Now I have to add the print information of address inside the print employee. Like you are seeing that the name part is printed by the names print function, and the date of birth is printed by the print date print function, and date of hiring is also with the date print function. Now the address, because it is an object, it is part of this class. So what I will do is right here is C out and then backslash n. Employer was born on and was hired on and has address, and in front of that I will call address dot print. So that will print the address portion as well. And finally, in the setter part, the setter will definitely receive these fields. So I will add it here like this. String hn, string st, string, and don't forget to add the salary part, double cell. Now what will happen? Now you will. Now you are seeing that the name information is being set by the names setter, that is set name, and the particular fields are passed in that setter, like first name, middle name, and last name. And then the date of birth information is set by the set date function of the date class, and date of hiring is as well set by the set date function of the date class. Now what will happen? I hope that you have guessed it, that we will use the address object, which is the part of this employee class, dot, and use its setter function, that address function, and we will pass hn, st, cty for city, and cun for country, and the address setter will set all these parameters. And don't forget to set the salary as well, and salary will be set like this, cell, because you have received the salary in cell, and that will be set in the cell. So now you can see that all the fields, like first name, middle name, last name, three date of birth fields, three date of hiring fields, four address fields, and one individual field, that is salary, which is not the part of any part of any class actually. This is a simple field and part of the employee class. So that is how you have created a new component, a new class, and added it inside the existing employee class to add the address information. That is the complete thing. Now what we will do here is, now I will add the address portion as well and the salary portion. So address portion is first the house number. So let's say 12U block. Then comes the street. So street number is, let's say, Green Street. Street name is Green Street. And then comes the city. Let's say city is Lahore. And then comes the country. So in street address, we are also adding the society name. Let's say Green Street. Um, let's say DHA is for Green Street. Let's say. So here, country. So now this object will be set, and if you can see here, this address information will be set by this 12U here, DHA phase for Green Street here, Lahore, and then here comes the Pakistan. In country, we have to write Pakistan. And now for this second one, I am creating another object, address type object, and in address type object, I'm giving it name add, and in add, I'm initializing few fields here. Let's say 240 M block. This fictitious address, model down street 2, that's a street 2, and of course the city name will be Lahore and the country name will be Pakistan. What I've done here is I've created here a separate object add, and here I've initialized all these fields which I've mentioned here. 240M here and model down street 2, Lahore, Pakistan. House number, street, city, country. And what happens here, I will create an E2, and there an address object will be created, and all this information will be copied here. That is what I'm doing here at this moment. Okay, so now what I will do is simply pass this in the constructor, and in this case the constructor which will be called is the constructor which are receiving the references of these pre-existing objects, right? These are pre-existing objects I've just created in the main. It has nothing to do with construction of another class. These are independent objects. Mind it, any class can be a part of another class, or it can be it can be treated as separate class. So object can be treated in both way, as a part of another object or as a separate object. So here in E1, name, date, and address are treated as a part of E1, but here these are treated as independent objects. So now what will happen? When I will print this E1, so let me run it. Let's remove the error. What it is saying is, yes, I've missed the string word here. Okay. Okay, so yes, I've not given the second constructor here.